recording. Good morning, everyone. My name is Diana Schulach. I'm the program manager at Family Focus Resource Center. We are very lucky to have here today a collaboration between Family Focus Resource Center and CalTASH, a leading disability rights organization in California, who just FYI, they will be having their annual conference this year located in Burbank, March 29th and 30th at the LA Marriott at the Burbank Airport. So we will be putting more information about that in the chat. But today we have Scott Shepard with us from Avenues SLS, who's going to talk about alternatives to traditional day programs. Please know that we will have a question and answer period at the end of the presentation where we will actually pause the recording because we don't record people's questions. So please hold on to your questions till the end. If you feel that you can't remember your question maybe for later and you don't want to forget it, you can go ahead and put it into the chat and we will read it during that question and answer period. So I'm going to go ahead and pass this over to Scott. Thank you so much, Scott, for being here.
Great. Thanks, Diana. And also with me today is Heather Hardman.
Yes.
And I was just sharing with Diana, Heather and I have known each other since 1987, when her and her family moved out from Connecticut to California due to Dad sort of changing jobs. And she moved from a traditional program to what we had at the time was more of a traditional licensed day program. And that wasn't really a good fit for you.
Yeah.
So, but we'll share what Heather's been doing since then with sort of more individualized supports and services. So, if you can put into chat, I know that signups that Diana said, we have a variety of people here, but if you could maybe identify if you're a family member, a self-advocate, or person that's receiving supports, adult service providers or job coaches, or from education, either school services or transition services, or from the regional center, or something different. If you'd like, you can put that into chat, and once we sort of get a good population, we can see who the audience is, because I really want to make sure I address sort of everybody's interests. All right, so there we go. Just a little bit about what we're going to be sharing and talking about today. I want everyone to sort of think of the day supports that you need, whether you currently receive it or whether you're looking at it upon graduating from school. I want you to think of those supports as services and not a program. I think that's one of the key things that we talk about and when we conceptualize what services and supports you need. We really want to think of these supports as services that are provided around you as a way for you to access your community and the places that you like to spend time, where you want to spend time, what you want to do. And we'll talk about a few guidelines of what those services might look like as well. But it shouldn't be the services you receive in whatever we call it, day services or a day program. It shouldn't be something you have to fit into. Those services should fit around you. Another way to think about it, or something really to think about that I remind people, is just to remember what that I in your IEP or IPP stands for. And that's individualized, okay? That your services don't have to look the same as everyone else's. In fact, they shouldn't. My services will look different than your services, or Diana's services, or Heather's services. Whatever services and supports I need are going to be different, because we're all different individuals. We all have different needs. So since Heather is going to be going to work, Heather, we're going to share your story a little bit, okay?
Yes.
All right. So Heather is shared for a lot of different places, and I'll do a lot of the talking for Heather, but I'll have her sort of chime in so she can share a little bit about herself. Ever since I've known you, Heather, I know work is very important to you.
Yes.
So a little bit about your history, Heather. It took us a while to figure out that you enjoyed spending time in the community
Yeah.
instead of a classroom or a traditional sort of licensed day program where sort of people went. Because sometimes Heather would get stuck in some routines, and she used to receive what we call behavior management day program services back in the late 1980s. But we also noticed that Heather had a blast when she was out in the community, um, and when she was at social recreation programs. But again, she experienced more challenges in the segregated either school classroom type settings or in the sort of segregated buildings day programs. She really did not do well. And that's a picture of you and your sister.
Yes.
So Heather, where do you work now?
I was speaker.
Edwards Theater. And that's in fact where you're going to be working today.
Yes.
And in the past, you had jobs at Foster's Freeze, Carl's Jr.
Yeah.
You've attended College of the Canyons classes
Yes.
when time permits, like swimming classes, aerobics, and dance.
Yes.
And you continue to work at Edwards twice a week.
Yes.
So here's some pictures of you over the years. Heather has actually worked at the Edwards Regal Theater since 1998. And what are you doing there?
Has an aunt man.
Heather Hartman washing the
Dishes.
washing the mirrors there.
Nails.
All right. And then where's your second job, Heather?
Griffins.
Right here. Where's your second job?
Mushrooms.
At Marshall's. And she's had a second job at Marshall's also for about 20 years. Both of these are part-time jobs. So she works a couple days at Edwards and 1 or 2 days a week at Marshall's also.
Yes.
And at Marshall's, what do you do?
I was speaker. As an aunt man.
And you hang up the
Clothes.
you're hanging up the clothes. And I know I did some job coaching years ago with you at Marshall's, and I thank goodness Heather knew what she had to do because there's all different sizes and shapes of lingerie, and I have no idea where it goes. And but Heather does.
Yeah.
Heather continues to have the support of a full-time coach when she's working, and that's something that traditionally was provided in the day program she used to be in. So we just took that coach, and okay, that person is now a job coach, and Heather spends all of her time in the community. She does not attend any program with walls. So you go to the gym, you go to your work settings. She does everything in the community with different sort of routines on a daily basis, depending on what appointments she has and where she needs to go and what she wants to do. And your bosses describe you as dependable and hardworking.
Yes.
And you're a classic example of a person, I think, whose skills were underestimated in a special day class setting and in other segregated environments. In fact, I think if Heather was still there, they might still think she's not ready to work because she didn't do well in those environments. Those behaviors wouldn't go away in those environments. They only go away when she has meaningful roles, meaningful things to do. And that's what we continue to help support Heather with. Oh yeah. And you also like to walk the 5Ks?
Yes.
Okay. You like getting your nails done?
Yes.
What color have you got today?
Blue.
Oh, let me see. You got yellow, I think.
Yellow.
Hold them up. Hold your head. There you go.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Heather loves the stuff like that.
Yes.
All right. So you live in your home in Saugus with your roommate Gloria,
Yes.
and you split the rent and utilities.
Yes.
You use your work earnings for vacation trips.
Yes.
And Heather's had the opportunity to share her story with legislators like Assemblymember Tom Lackey and LA County Supervisor Catherine Barger, and to help show why having more individualized services is so important, and why we want to make sure that we enhance, the services that are available to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities through our California Regional Center system. All right, are you ready to get to work?
Yes.
All right, well, thank you for being here.
Yes.
All right, I like to have somebody sort of present with me, and I was able to snag Heather to just share a little bit about her day services, and sort of how they're really customized to her needs. Okay, the regional center is the one that has to worry about what it's called, and the agency that you're with has to worry about what type of services it is, or what it's vendored as. But if you're a family member or somebody receiving services, we should really just be looking at services that make sense for you. Okay, they need to be person-centered, customized, and individualized for your needs. So we're going to go through some other options here. So one thing that's important to understand is that we do have a federal home and community-based services rule. Okay, and this rule states that services must be integrated and support people's full access to the greater community. So that means that services can't just be segregated in a building where people never have an opportunity to interact with people without disabilities, or that aren't paid to be with them. Okay, we need to have some integration. People need to have the same opportunities to be included in typical activities in the community, and that can include work, employment, volunteering, going to the gym, taking a community college class, and we'll talk about some more of those as options as well. It's also important to know that the state of California and North LA County Regional Center have an employment first policy. Okay. The state came up with their policy first, and North LA came up with their policy. In fact, I was on the vendor advisory committee when we drafted this in 2015, and it was passed by the board of directors at North LA Regional Center. And that states that employment is an expectation, not an option. Employment occurs in a broad variety of roles and settings. Employment is inclusive, integrated, and compensated competitively. And integrated employment will be the first option that's considered for every adult that we support. So that means when people are exiting school or whatever, at least the first option for services that they should be introduced to should include some type of employment. And again, employment, we need to think very broadly. For some people like Heather has 3 to 4 days a week where she goes part-time, just a few hours a day to her employment. And then she also goes to the gym and does other things. So employment isn't necessarily working full-time. It's really customized, and it's individualized based on each person and what they want to do, what they can do, what they have a tolerance for. So for those of us like myself, who was a service provider, we have what we call a program design that we submit to the regional center and ultimately to the state Department of Developmental Services, and they approve our program design. And that program design states how our services are going to be provided. So most regional center funded day services are funded at 30 hours a week. That's pretty much their standard. Okay. However, how these services and how those hours are provided, we can be flexible. Okay. And some programs still think, oh, our program is only 9 to 3. That's our day. And that's when you come. But what if somebody maybe doesn't get up early or has some morning routines that take a long time? What about somebody that might have some medical needs and they might need to come back in the middle of the day to their home, maybe with a G-tube, maybe with due to stamina, maybe due to toileting issues or eating or anything like that? What do they Do they need to actually take a break from their day program and then resume after a period of time to do something else? What if somebody gets a job on a weekend? What if someone, gets a job in the evening? Can we be flexible? And the answer is yes. So again, the hours, those 30 hours a week, can be used flexibly by agencies that are committed to providing person-centered services. We can do a split shift if need be, where we can have 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours at another time. The hours can be based on the activities that you want to do, whether it's in the evening or the daytime or even the weekend. 30 hours, those 30 hours may also be provided over 5 days, or either more than 5 days or less than 5 days. I know we've supported for several years now. We have a gentleman that still lives with his mom, and she says, it would be really helpful if I had an extra day. And the regional center won't necessarily fund more than 30 hours, but what we've done is, instead of 5 6-hour days, we have 6 5-hour days. And that enables him to go to the gym, to go swimming, to do the things that he really wants to do, where our staff pick him up from he and his mom's house and get him out every day. But that works out more meaningfully for her and for him, so that he gets out 6 days a week. So again, we can be flexible. And for those of you that are considering looking at maybe starting a day service or day program of some type, think about ensuring that your program design is flexible and that it can allow that. I know that ours does. And again, an important key for you, if you're a family member or a person receiving services, is for you to identify and describe what regional center, describe to your regional center service coordinator, what services and supports that you really want and need. What does it look like? Don't worry about thinking about what the program is. Worry about, what are the services that you or your family member really want and need. Stop thinking only about what you know that exists. Think broader and bigger. And if you're a family member, I know a lot of times families really want that continuation after school services end, that, wow, we really want that respite, or we just want a place for my son or daughter to go to spend time where they're safe, that, so that we can work, or we have, some time, to ourselves. We get a little bit of a break. So respite is important for many families, especially families that are working. But we also want you to think broader and bigger than just respite, okay, while the parents at work. We want you to focus on your hopes and dreams for your family member, and their hopes and dreams and potential nightmares. But think about their future career, their valued roles that they can have in the community. Those are the things that we want you to be thinking about, so that you can share with your regional center representative, in that person-centered IPP, what makes sense for you. One of the things that we focus on is meaningful days and valued roles. And what we mean by that is we want to make sure that the days are meaningful to the person, not just a babysitting program, okay? We want it to really be centered around things that are meaningful and important to that person. We also feel that it's very important that everyone that we support have meaningful ways to give back to their communities. Now, that can happen through having a paid job, okay, integrated employment. It can also happen from volunteering, okay? And there's lots of ways to volunteer and to have, again, a valued role in your community. Also, just by being a student at a community college. And everyone can attend community college, and I hope to convince you of that by the end of this slide presentation. We also need to recognize that each of the people we support should have meaningful ways to educate their community about diversity, and so that they can make a difference. Because we know that when Heather is working at Edwards, and when she's worked, she is on it. She just loves the working. She doesn't like to be interrupted by people coming up and asking her questions, but she really enjoys that job, and she does a very high quality job at what she does at both Marshalls and Edwards. And that's very similar to what a lot of the people that we support do if we find the right match. Okay. And Heather knows she's making a difference. All right. And Heather is really an ambassador, I feel, and we all feel that she's an ambassador for disability, for autism, et cetera, to show that, hey, we can do things, we can participate, we can contribute, we are meaningful members of our community, and that's something that's really important. When people are just funneled into a day program where they're not really out in the community much, then we're not educating the community about what people can do. So it's something also to think about, because I think that's a key, is think about what are the meaningful ways that the people we support and that your family members can actually educate the community about competence that people have. And again, the INIEP and IPP stands for individualized. It's important to recognize again that both work and volunteering can be part-time. Depends on people's stamina. Sometimes starting a job an hour a day, once or twice a week, that might be the baseline where people are at. And then once people get used to that routine, once people see that they're competent at it, then they can improve their hours or add to those hours or the days that they're doing things like that. Some people that we support, whether it's due to their mental health issues, some people that we support have schizophrenia on top of their developmental disability. And with a couple of ladies that we support, they really want variety. They don't want to go to the same place every day. It bugs them. They want to see different people. Every Monday is the same. They go and volunteer at the same place a couple hours. They get to say hi to the people. They get to make a difference. But Tuesdays are a little different, and Wednesdays are different as well. Maybe the constant might be that they might go to a gym or take a fitness class at the local community college. Those might be some constants that they continually do every day, but they also want some variety in what they do. It's also important that we can fill in the gaps around maybe a very part-time paid or volunteer job to start. What are they going to do with the rest of the time that they have, with the rest of the time that we have to support them? What are some other integrated community activities people can do? And again, that can include community college classes, getting a membership at the gym, volunteering, things like that. So let's talk a little bit about employment. We're firm believers that everybody can work as long as they've got the right motivations in place. And if that's something that, will make a difference in their life. We believe it makes a difference in most people's life. If we have some people that might have trust or other income, or the family says, hey, they don't need the extra income, like, okay, it's still important to then volunteer. But let's focus a little bit on employment. So you may hear this term a lot. Your regional center is focusing, and nationwide, we're focusing on the term CIE. That means competitive integrated employment. Okay. And that means that competitive means that they're going to be working for at or the same wage as anybody else that's doing that job. And it's going to be minimum wage or better. Okay. We're no longer really supporting the idea of sub-minimum wage. And in fact, in California, we've moved to not have that sort of sub-minimum wage anymore. California has voted on that. So that means we've got to find people jobs where they're going to be earning minimum wage or better. Okay. It's got to be integrated. In other words, we want to make sure that that job allows people to work in the same situations as typical peers with the same job, and to work alongside non-disabled peers. And then employment means it's paid directly by the employer or business. It's not something that's under the table or anything like that. So in a nutshell, that's what competitive integrated employment means. So we also have the paid internship program And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but that allows people to actually get paid while they're interning, or maybe they're not directly hired, but they get a period of time to sort of try out a job and to see if that works for them and still get paid. But both the competitive integrated employment and paid internship program offer incentive payments to regional center vendors like myself, to agencies, when we assist students and adults with developmental disabilities to gain and maintain competitive integrated employment or that paid internship at an integrated site for at least 30 days. Now, I'm not going to go into all the current incentives, but I'm going to give you a way to contact me afterwards. And I have other webinars that are recorded that go through all of the incentives, which are very good and very worthwhile. After 30 days, an agency gets a certain amount. When somebody's employed for 6 months, you can get another stipend. And at the end of 1 year, if they're still employed, they can get an additional stipend. And that can really help you with paying for job developers, or sometimes we'll just throw the person and their team a party, all the coaches and the people that help them, as well as the individual, and they'll pick a nice restaurant to go to. But anyhow, those incentives are available, and we want to make sure that people are aware of them and using them. So in order to be eligible for both the paid internship program or competitive integrated employment, participants must be consumers of a regional center in order to be eligible for those incentives. The student or adult worker must have a goal for employment in their regional center individual program plan, or IPP, prior to obtaining that employment or internship. And for people, excuse me, in the self-determination program, a regional center vendor must be used to help apply for those incentives. Because right now, the only way to get the incentives is that there has to be a regional center vendored agency that's doing that. Now, for school services, if you're in education, this could be another way. These incentives could be another way to provide additional support hours to what you traditionally do with workability. Okay, and the paid internship program, if you get a vendorization with the regional center for one or more services, you can get an addendum and provide paid internship program that will actually pay the individual while they're working or interning under an employer. So, okay, we talked about competitive employment. Paid internship program is meant to increase the vocational skills and abilities of those who want to participate in an internship. The internship is paid minimum wage or better by the employer or by the service provider, or through a financial management service, which is vendored through the regional center. And then that entity is then reimbursed by the regional center after paydays. And the paid internship is allowed to continue for up to 1,040 hours per year. Okay. It's hoped that when people are interning, that they will either gain the skills to be able to be hired onto a job in that setting, or to find out maybe this is something they want to do and they find a job elsewhere in that career area that they were interning in. Or they might find out, I don't really want this, and they terminate that internship and try something else. But it gives people an opportunity to get some paid work experience. Okay. And again, for the competitive integrated employment and paid internship program incentives to be able to be given out, that must be a goal of the individual's IPP. And we encourage you to do that at a young age. Just even if you don't know what kind of job your family member, or if you're an individual receiving services, what you can do. If you don't know what you can do or what your family member can do, still put that goal in there, because 3 months down the road, somebody might come up with a great idea. You might have a family member that says, I have a connection where I think they can work. And if you want to use an internship or get incentives through competitive integrated employment, if that goal is already in your IPP, you're good to go. So some of the employment supports and services that can be used to provide employment services, like getting somebody a job through competitive integrated employment, or to assist with a paid internship, include traditional supported employment services, which is through Department of Rehab or Voc Rehab. Okay, so that's one traditional way. But also regional center funded services are also eligible to provide these services and supports. If you're a regional center vendor, what you have to do is you have to get a addendum, write an addendum to one of your program designs, one of your vendor program designs, and do an addendum for both competitive integrated employment, if that's what you want to do, and also do one for paid internship program, which would allow you to assist somebody to get an internship, and then those wages would be reimbursed through the regional center. So some of the services that people have utilized in regional center funding to get these services and to help people get jobs include community integration programs, which are very typical community day services, supported living services, which we use. So even though we provide supports to people live in their own homes, we actually have an addendum onto that that allows us to help get people jobs as well. Independent living services, or ILS, even a residential provider like a group home can add on a component for a paid internship program or for to help people get jobs through competitive integrated employment. So any regional center vendor service provider can add an addendum that will allow them to provide these services and supports to people, and that will allow them to get those incentives that are available. Now I'm going to share a little bit about Pam. In fact, Pam's having her IPP right now, so she couldn't come on. But one of the things that Pam let us know early on is that she needed control of her schedule instead of a program. She didn't want a program telling her what to do, and that she had to be a certain place. She has some medical issues that come up off and on, and she gets really nervous and anxious about a lot of things. And she finds it to be more relaxing when she makes her own schedule, and that's what she does. So she has a variety of things that she does every week. One of the things includes a soda machine job. There were a couple of soda machines that were available to her that someone offered, hey, I don't want these anymore. And she has them in some businesses, and her job is to restock them and take out the coins and put new stuff in, make sure that nothing is outdated, find out what they want in that particular work environment. And some are soda machines, some have food, some have a variety. And so Pam's job is to go and stock these machines. Usually she does it once a week. And but she can pick, some days she has days where she's under the weather and doesn't want to go out. That's fine. Then she'll just pick another day to do that. She also has done some bell ringing over the holidays through Salvation Army, and also goes to other volunteer jobs during the week. One of the ones that she's been at a long time that she worked was Project Hollywood Cares at CBS Studios, and they package different CDs, DVDs, entertainment things for some of the troops overseas. And she helps package those up and mail them out. And that's once a week. She also works for Habitat for Humanity, where she helps sort some of their stuff. That's the upper right-hand picture. And she's also done some work assisting. Oh my gosh, now I'm forgetting what the other place that she goes. Another volunteer job where she assists at a sort of a senior services where they'll give food out to people for lunch. She does that. Something that's also very important for Pam and a lot of the people we support as we get older, including me, we've got to be active. And and that might mean going to the gym or going swimming, but getting out and doing things, it helps us to be healthier. One of the things we also find is for people that are taking different medications, if you're a couch potato, those medications don't get absorbed as easily if you're just sitting around a lot. But when you're active, and even if you get some range of motion, some movement by going to a gym and just doing some cycling, or even with no weights, get some movement with your upper body and lower body, that helps your medications get absorbed better. And so we find that people need lower levels of medications because their medications are going to be more effective. So working out, moving around is really important, especially as we get older. And then what else can people do? And again, enroll in classes at college or adult school. And if you need a coach, that's something we provide during our day services. Enrolling in recreational or hobby classes through local parks and rec, going to the YMCA or a gym. Those are all things, ways for people to be integrated and to get that activity that they need, that physical activity. And here's get some pictures over the years. We were very instrumental back when I first started doing day services in the late 80s. We had to really push a lot of our community colleges to include folks, especially folks with more significant disabilities. But we reminded them that since community colleges receive state money, they can't discriminate based on disability. That means they have to include people. And we're an accommodation. If somebody needs a coach, we get permission. We actually have our coaches that might need to get in the water or get in the pool with a person, whether it's at the gym or whether it's at a swim class, and we'll do that. And also, they might need a coach with them at different aspects of their training. So we've helped people get volunteer jobs at places like the animal shelter, the YMCA, Meals on Wheels, delivering lunches to seniors, getting gym memberships, swim class. On the bottom right, I guess saw Christopher this morning. Christopher moved into his own place at age 19, was still eligible for some school services, but the school had a difficult time. They tried to confine him in a classroom, and Chris is very active. So unfortunately, what would happen almost every day is he'd strip his clothes and run, and they couldn't handle. They would call us to pick him up from school every day, and we finally had them actually work with us to say, you guys take him, and we enrolled him at College of the Canyons. So what do you do with somebody that's a runner? Well, in Chris's case, we got him in a running class, and he was in that running class for 4 years. Now that he's gotten a little older, now he goes to the gym, and you may see him at Central Park. You may see him at a 5K. He's in a lot of 5Ks because he is a runner. That's what he loves to do. So we make sure he has opportunities to do that. And if he doesn't have those physical opportunities at the gym, either in a fitness class, which he used to take also at College of the Canyons, or at the gym, if he doesn't get that hour or two of working out every day, the rest of the day is going to be really tough. But the working out allows him, then he settles down, and then he's able to do some volunteer jobs and some paid jobs. He works for Salvation Army and does some other things, hanging clothes and helping out. So he's got a lot of other things that he does in the community after he goes to the gym. And for people that don't believe that you can take a community college class, or that your family member won't be able to, I want to remind you that both Antelope Valley College and College of the Canyons give PE credit to their students to bowl. Okay, so you can take a college class where you get to go to Santa Clarita Lanes and bowl, and everybody can bowl. So, and the nice thing is then you get integrated with some other young college students, which is pretty cool. And so anyhow, when you think you can't take a college class, of course you can. Okay, start with that one. Another thing that started last year in 2024 is we want to make sure that you know that if you identify a social recreation goal in your IPP, the regional center may be able to reimburse you for the cost of that activity. Okay, it must be integrated, it must be community-based, and something that's meaningful to you. So examples of things right now of different goals that people have that are being reimbursed by North LA County Regional Center include a gym membership. So again, make sure you ask this at your IPP. If that's something that's important, is having a gym membership, find the gym that's going to be important to you. Some gyms have basketball courts, like a gymnasium inside that you can play sports. Some people like that. Some have a pool. Some people want and need that. Some people have the racquetball. Find the gym that makes sense to you or your family member. And one of the things that we find we have to do with a lot of people is through our day services is we have to help coach them to help them to have a routine, because especially at first, people might not want to go to the gym. They might not want to work out. We have to do the encouragement. We have to do the coaching, and we have to help assist them to access whatever the equipment is or the activities are that they're going to do at the gym. Okay, so that's our responsibility as a day service or a day program. That's what we do. Okay, other things that can be included in this social rec goal through the regional center and be reimbursed for. It might be a karate class or a parks and rec class. I know somebody that took a fencing class through Parks and Rec. It can also include a bowling league. Okay. Again, our responsibility is assisting the person to keep their monthly receipts for either the gym membership or for the bowling league. I just supported a gentleman yesterday at a bowling league. So we get a receipt weekly for what he pays for that bowling league. And it's got to be integrated. Okay. So it's got to be a typical league where you have the opportunity to access that activity with other people who don't have disabilities. So again, make that a part of your day and make sure that you request a social rec goal. Find something that'll be helpful and meaningful to your family member or the person you support. Okay, just share another example here of someone that didn't really fit into that traditional day program model, and that's Steve. Steve is another person I've known for a long time. When Steve had more hair and when neither of our hair were gray, we knew each other. I knew him when he was still in school. Steve has the label of autism. He has a seizure disorder, lots of medical issues going on. He used to have difficulty even staying in a day program all day long because he wasn't really that active. But over the last 25 years, he's been a lot more active since we've gotten him out in the community and not just at a sitting around kind of program. One of the things that Steve is very fortunate of is that he has a family trust. So his family said he doesn't really need to have a paid job. But again, we realize that if people don't have meaningful things that they're doing, if they don't have ways to give back, they're going to get depressed because they're not really doing meaningful things. So we had to come up with some ideas that what are some things that Steve might enjoy, that Steve could do, where he could contribute and give back. And you notice he's got a lot of flowers in a grocery cart here. So this is something that Steve does every Wednesday. And before I share that, I'll share just a little bit. Steve doesn't communicate traditionally. He doesn't have any verbal language. So we've had to come up with some strategies that help us to identify, how do we know when Steve likes something or doesn't like something? And one of the ways we did that is we call this a communication dictionary. And we've learned that when Steve does certain things, it means something. And then how should we respond? So for example, pretty easy one, when Steve takes your hand and pulls on you or grabs your car keys, it means I want to go or I want something. So then, okay, once he does that, then we say, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And we follow his lead. Steve also, although he doesn't speak, he makes some noises. He tends to make noises when he's happy. So he will go, ah, or ee, when he's out and about. And that means he's either saying hi to people because he loves people, or he's just happy. So our coaches will usually say, "Oh, Steve, you sure are happy today," or "Oh, Steve, are you saying hi?" Because we want to make sure nobody gets nervous around Steve, because he's an adult and he comes in people's face and starts making noise. He's really just saying hi. And so we help coach him around that. When he gets up, it's meaningful. Don't tell him to sit down. He might need to use the restroom or get a drink of water. So follow his lead. And so again, we use tools like this to help identify, how are people communicating with us, and how do they let us know when they prefer something or don't prefer something. And Steve can definitely let us know what he likes and what he doesn't like. And that's one of the ways we've helped figure out what are things that he enjoys in the community. So one thing he does, he shops for the Santa Clarita Food Pantry and also for Help the Children. He does that on different days, but once a week for each. And he will go and get some needed items. Luckily, again, he has that trust. We've got the approval. He goes and does a little grocery shopping for them. And then he hands those off at the food pantry. And he's been doing that for 15 years at least. And this is a group of folks, at the food pantry that are, thanking him for dropping stuff off. We said we wanted to include this in his presentation, so they got everybody there, and, he got a group picture. But another thing he does this every Wednesday. We help Steve to identify a nursing home or a facility that is a Medi-Cal facility that doesn't get a lot of visitors. And so they've got a lot of people that are in that facility. And Steve goes and purchases flowers every week, and then delivers those flowers to the people in that facility. And he's done that now for, probably close to 13 years, once a week. Now, if you look at the picture on the left, that was when we first started, well over 12, 13 years ago. And you can actually see that somebody is holding onto his hand. His coach is holding onto his hand. We had to put a flower in his hand and actually teach him. We had to do hand over hand to get him to give it to somebody. And he wasn't really sure why he was there. He doesn't like hospitals. And I think he was a little worried about seeing people in scrubs there and things like that. And he was like, "Why are these people trying to give me a hug? I don't want a hug." It took him several months, actually, of once a week, until he understood, oh, these people really appreciate what I'm doing. Oh, okay, I get it. And now, as you can see from the pictures, as he's getting older on the right, we just give him a flower and he finds somebody and hands it out. And that's what we do. And that has made a real significant difference in the lives of the people that are there. We did have a period of time where he wasn't able to do that during the pandemic. We had a period of a good year and a half where he wasn't able to, but thank goodness over the last couple of years now, he's back doing it again. And they've allowed that. So that's been really good. It was very interesting. We did have a period about, 8 or 9 years ago where they got a new administrator over at this location. And the administrator saw Steve with his staff, delivering some flowers, but Steve was very happy and was making a lot of noise and going, greeting people. And she said, "Who's this guy? Why is he here?" And she says, "Well, he can't come anymore. That's ridiculous. He can't."
Okay.
And so what we did was we met with, facilitator, tried to let her, or the administrator tried to let her know a little bit about what was going on with Steve and why he's there. But what really worked is, guess like in any facility, there's client rights. And the ladies that were there signed a petition saying, Steve's my visitor. He has a right to come here. And so he was able to come back after a few weeks off. And then the administrator got to know Steve better, and she was really able to see, oh, he's really making a difference. And it's okay. And everybody loves him. So it worked out really good. But again, we got to think creatively. What can people do? Where can people make a difference? What do people prefer? Other things that Steve does on a regular basis as part of his day program is he gets a mani-pedi every couple of weeks. And what was really cool is that the gal that does it for him actually called and said, "Hey, I missed Steve during COVID." She says, "I'd be glad to give him one in the garage." And so Steve went over to her place and he got his mani-pedi in the garage. That's on the right. Because part of what we do too is how do we help people develop relationships that are meaningful in the community, where people get to know each other and people get to know them. And we find it's a lot harder for people to develop those relationships if we have multiple people with disabilities together trying to integrate. But when we're supporting people more individually around what they want to do, it's a lot easier to help people develop meaningful, healthy relationships in the community. So again, alternatives to traditional day programs, we want to look at ways that people can start their days. Sometimes they start their days at the job site, sometimes at a community college, or sometimes at the gym or YMCA. We try to use the principle of what we call natural proportion. And that means if we find that let's say 10% of the community at any given time has a disability, then we want to make sure that 10%, no more than 10% of the people in a given setting maybe have a significant disability. So we don't want to enroll 5 people in the same college class because that might be overwhelming to the instructor or to the other students. We want each person to sort of have their own class, or no more than, let's say, 2 students, per class. The same thing with going to the gym. We have some people that do go to the same gym, but we make sure that we stagger the times so that not everybody with a disability is going on the same hour. We want to make sure when Steve also goes to the gym, when Steve goes to the gym, that's his time, and he actually has a gym that he goes to that other people that we support do not. But we make sure that people go on a regular sort of schedule so they get to know people at the gym and get to work out in the same place, and maybe some relationships might happen. But we try to keep that natural proportion, whether it's a workplace, whether it's a college class, whether it's a gym, a recreational course at the Parks and Rec. Try to make sure we don't over inundate people with disability. Okay. Try to stick to that natural proportion. And then we really focus a lot on person-centered planning and environmental matching that we use to help develop valued roles for people. But most of all, people need lots of opportunities and real experience in a variety of community places so that people can let us know, and they can make a choice about what they like and what they don't like. And even people like Steve and Heather, who you met earlier, we really know and believe and have faith that they can let us know when they don't like something. Even if they don't communicate traditionally, they can let us know. Okay. But people aren't going to be able to let us know what they like and don't like if we haven't given them those experiences. So let people try different places out, find out what they like, what they don't like. Hopefully this is happening during their school services. Because again, we want to make sure that when they start having that individual transition plan as part of their IEP at age 16, we want them to be spending some time out of the classroom or in multiple classes. And then as they get to be transitioned, we want to make sure they have job experience, both paid and volunteer. And we want to be able to make sure that they have those experiences so that once they exit the school funded services and come into regional center funded day programs or day services, we want to make sure that we have a better idea of what they want to do. And we would love for the families and the individuals to say, here's what I want. Okay. Instead of what do you have? These are the services I want. Can you provide these services to me? Okay. Just a quick note on Department of Labor laws is that we can't assist people to volunteer or to work for free at a for-profit business where you're doing the same thing that other workers are being paid for. So for example, even though we might want somebody to maybe learn skills on how to work at a Walmart or a Target or something like that, we can't have people volunteer there. That would be illegal. All right. Department of Labor would come in and would they would actually come down on the Target and the Walmart, because that's not allowable. You can't have somebody do like slave labor or work for free when other people are doing that same job, where there aren't other volunteers already in that situation. So typically you're going to look at, if you are looking at volunteers, you're going to look at nonprofit entities if it's going to be a job they're doing for them, like a thrift shop or something like Salvation Army, Red Cross, hospitals. I support a gentleman that works in the admitting department at a large hospital, and his job is to help walk people to and from their appointments and to socialize, which he really likes to do. He has a coach with him, so the coach is also a volunteer as well as a paid support, because he does need a coach sometimes with things. And so we do that as well. But anyhow, we want to look for nonprofits where people can sort of fit in and maybe do some of that volunteer work, or other places where people can make a difference, like what Steve does delivering flowers. Okay. So anyhow, just to make sure that we know, you can't just volunteer anywhere. And then how do we promote successful career opportunities? We want to think about how our people, including families and self-advocates, how are they involved in identifying and finding potential jobs? Ask families and friends for their business contacts, for job connections and other resources. You can do this at the IEP meeting or the IPP meeting. Find out what families do. And even if the families do something that might not be appropriate for their family member, you might have another student or another adult you support that might be able to fit into something like that. And then second, what services and community supports are available to people after work? So again, if somebody like Heather's only working a couple hours today, what else is she doing? Okay, besides helping present at this webinar? Well, she also has the opportunity to go to the gym. She can get volunteer jobs. She can do other things. She can, getting a second job like Heather has as well. So we usually try to find volunteer and paid opportunities and then build around that to build a full day for people. And then find out what has and hasn't worked from previous work experiences. That's really, really important. And then number 4, I said earlier that it's important that people have the right motivations in place if they're going to be successful at a job. So we want to ask the question, how will having a job make a significant difference in the person's quality of life? Are the right motivations in place? We want to make sure that the person is able to notice a significant difference in their spending habits or be able to save for something they want. A lot of times we'll even suggest that, hey, can the job coach go out with them and help blow part of their first paycheck? It shouldn't just go straight into a savings account. One of the things that we've done with one of the gals I supported years ago, and we've sort of piggybacked on this, is we make sure that that people have a way to maybe eat out a little bit more frequently. One of the gals we support right now, she has what we call a girls' day out, and every day she works, she has a girls' day out, going out, a girls' lunch out. She gets to go out for lunch, and that's really important. She knows on her work days, okay, I get to go out today. I don't have to brown bag it. But we need to make sure people have those opportunities. And then also remember that entry-level jobs are usually the first step in a person's career. So help the person to think about career goals 5 or 10 years down the road. Okay. Entry-level jobs are important, I think, for all of us. Most of us started at entry-level jobs, but it doesn't mean it has to be the be-all, end-all. So what's next? And then something I'll include in the chat that you can sort of upload is a tool that we use. We call it an environmental matching tool. I've talked a lot about how do we identify, what works, what doesn't work when we try to find a volunteer or a paid situation where people can sort of make a difference. We know that it needs to be integrated But some of the questions we ask are pretty simple. And again, I can provide this as a resource. I'm not going to go over it in depth. But one of the things we do is we'll ask people, or if they can't respond back, if they don't communicate traditionally, we'll ask families and previous teachers or staff that know them best, you know, where does the person perform best? Do they seem to enjoy being indoors more or outdoors? Around a lot of people or not too many? Do they like as jobs where they're sitting or standing? Do they like a job, or do they need a job where they're stationary or where they can move around? We support a lot of people that need to move around. So if you try to get them a job where they have to stay in one place, it's not a good match. Do they like or prefer a loud environment or quiet environment? A busy environment or not too busy? Do they like to do physical things, carry things, push things, pull things, set up tables, set up chairs? Or they don't want to do things like that. They like more fine motor things, or they like a social environment, things like that. So anyhow, this is just a very simple 2-page sheet. We originally designed this when we assisted people to come out of institutional settings, and they had no work experience at all. And many of them did not communicate traditionally. They couldn't tell us what they wanted except through their behaviors. And so we just use this as a starting point. Where are they happiest? If you have someone with a physical disability, where do they smile? Okay. Is it outdoors in the sun? I mean, where do they like to be? So again, we feel paid employment, volunteer work, and meaningful roles must be a focus for every person you support. Start with one meaningful, inclusive, integrated thing for each person each day, and then build around those things so that they have a fuller day that's filled with meaningful things. Try different things with different people until you find out what places and what things the person prefers and chooses. And again, remember, people can't choose what they want until we actually expose them to a wealth of experiences. And then I'm going to give you this last slide of some person-centered questions that may help you to identify what services that you want and need. So these questions we actually ask these of our support staff when they come on board. And we also ask these of people when they're first referred to our agency for services, or if we're looking at what they want. But we say, okay, this is sort of your bucket list. Before you die, or before you turn 30 or 50 or whatever it is, 10 years from now, what do you want to do? And sometimes people say, oh, I want to travel. I want to do this. Okay, well, you need money to do that. If you do, getting a job would probably be a good thing. So how can we help you do that? Then what do you want to be? Okay. Do you want to have a title? Do you want to have a role? Do you want to be a student? Do you want to be an employer? Do you want to start your own business? I don't know. What do you want to do? Do you just want to be healthy? Is that your goal? And you need to do things that help keep you healthy. Okay. What do you want to have? All right. Yeah. What do you want to have? We all want to have good health, but sometimes people want some other material things too. If those cost money, okay. Do you need a job to help you to get on track to purchasing that, or to having access to those things? And then also, very importantly, who do you want to help? Some people want to help their family, which is wonderful. That's something that I think most of us want to do. Some people want to help other certain populations, and I think that's great too. But who do you want to help? Because we also want to think, if we have a meaningful day, we're giving back, we're contributing. Our services are predominantly funded through taxpayer dollars. So we want to make sure that each of the people we support has a way to give back. And then what do we want people to say about us? What do you want people to say about you? Okay, that you're a good person, that you're this, you're that, whatever. I don't know. What do you want people to say? And sometimes by just getting the answers to these questions, it'll help us to identify a little bit easier, maybe what are some things we can look for in the community to match you to different things that you want to do, and help provide the supports you need to be able to do those things. So I'm hoping that those make sense for you. if you want more information specifically related to employment and Social Security, how do we deal with maintaining your benefits and things like that, we're actually funded with a state grant, and we have many people with disabilities that share their stories. They're about 90 minutes each. We have 5 different webinars that are recorded. They're also available in Spanish, Farsi, and Armenian. We collaborated with North LA Regional Center on these. And if you go to our Avenues website at www.avenuessls.org, you'll see a little button right on the top of the website if you want to look at those videos, and you can watch those recorded videos for free. You choose your language. So if you want it in Spanish, Farsi, or Armenian, you just click on that language, and then you can access that there. We also have the slides translated into Spanish, Farsi, and Armenian as well. And if you have any questions, or you want to connect with myself later to find out any additional questions that you might have had regarding this webinar, you can just go to info@avenuessls.org, and I'll get back to you. But I think what we want to do now is open up the chat and open up for any questions. And maybe first, Diana, you wanted to talk about the CalTASH conference?
Yeah, actually, I did just put a CalTASH conference flyer in the chat for everybody if you would like to register. Early bird registration ends February 14th. So there will be more information about this, continuous, Scott and I are both members, board members of this organization. So we think it is very important for families to attend. There'll be lots of really great conferences and workshops about similar topics for our disabled adults and teenagers, actually. So if you would like to register, the information is on there. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. And then we can go ahead and start taking questions and read the questions that are in the chat. Thank you so much. Hold on one moment.